Into Stargates, and through all of your studies, Timothy Alberino, living in Peru for the decade or so that you did, what is it that basically has drawn you to the same conclusions? Because the Native Americans know something that the dumb white man, and I'm saying that, won't acknowledge, at least in their history and in their colleges and in their textbooks, is that when we're dealing with all the extra-dimensional creatures, and Bigfoot is one, and all of the things in ancient activity, myths and legends, without a doubt, the Native Americans said they are in a parallel dimension and enter into ours. So go ahead, Tim, and share your revelation of what it came to, how you came to understand the Stargates and how important they are concerning the things of God.
Okay. Is there still static in my audio?
No, I think it's cleared up now.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, yeah. For some reason, there's obviously a significant lag here. So, but anyways, yeah. So, something I want to clarify for people who aren't familiar with the term Stargate. When we use the term Stargate, essentially what we're referring to is a portal that somehow is able to transport somebody from one location to the next, by perhaps bending the fabric of space, or who knows what the physics are behind it. But we're not talking about a portal, about a gateway that takes you from one side of a mountain to the other. We're talking about a gateway that takes you from one side of the Earth to the other, or perhaps even from one planet to the other. And so people who have a hard time with the word Stargate, think of it as a portal. Furthermore, you can associate it with something like Jacob's ladder that's described in the Bible, where he saw angels ascending and descending. So there's obviously some kind of technology that allows angelic entities, and not just angelic entities, anyone who knows how to operate the technology, to move between vast distances is basically instantaneously. So Amadu Muru is, I think, Steve, is one of the most amazing things I've come across in terms of Stargates, because here we have a megalith that's not unlike many of the other megaliths that we see around the world. And for people who haven't seen it, it's basically the outline of a doorway carved out. It's large. I don't know how large it is. I don't have any reference really, but it has within that outline of a doorway, there is another smaller doorway, the size, maybe it's 8 foot tall, or probably about 8 foot tall, carved into the outline of the doorway. So basically, the Peruvians living in the region believe, and these are, by the way, these are Peruvians who speak Quechua. These are not just run-of-the-mill Peruvians. These are the native people. These parts of Peru are still around, Steve referenced the Puno area around Lake Titicaca. There are still many indigenous, or at least some indigenous peoples living there that speak Quechua. They don't even speak Spanish, a lot of them. Some of them do, some of them don't, but they all speak Quechua. So these guys are familiar with the legends. They're familiar with the Inca legends. They're familiar with the legends of the different tribes that once lived in the area, all the legends associated with Lake Titicaca. And so this gate, what's called the Gateway of the Gods, or the Gateway of Amadu Muru, is, according to them, now this is them. This isn't according to Steve Quayle. This isn't according to Tim Alberino. This is according to the indigenous peoples living around this megalith. According to them, this location is an active Stargate, or an active portal. They've seen it open recently. And when I say recently, I'm talking about in the last 20 years or so, or whatever the amount of time that the person cites is. So this isn't something that just belongs to the ancient past. This is a functioning technology. And somehow, I don't know if it has to do with the resonance of the rock, or however, whatever the physics are behind it, these things are still being used to this day. That's why Steve talked about the Serpent Mound in Ohio being a place of still a place of unusual demonic activity, because these areas are still active. That's why homes that are built on certain sites or cities that are built on certain sites are, for lack of a better term, seem to be cursed or seem to have a heightened paranormal activity. It's because they're literally built on some of these sites or perhaps in the way of some of these comings and goings of entities. And so to
Tim,
illustrate...
I'm sorry, if I can interject one thing here. You're talking about the doorway or the the actual door that's located in the what would it be called? It's in the Valley of the Spirits near Lake Titicaca in Peru. The stone forest, the strange rock formations. The door.
Yes.
Okay, boy, I can't pronounce this, but Puerta. Okay, de Heu Marca, which is the Gate of the Gods. Just for your information for the listeners, the outside door, and this is off of the actual website for this, it measures 23 foot in height and width, and the smaller alcove in the center at the base, that little small hole measures just under 6 feet in height at its smallest area. I just wanted to throw that in there so I could look at least a little bit intelligent in talking about this, but there's some facts. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yes, and by the way, for people who, I'm sure lots of people are going to go look this up on YouTube, be advised that you're going to see some what I consider to be some very corny and unauthentic testimony coming from Westerners that go to the gate, New Agey kind of people who go to the gate and say, I felt this and I felt that, and one or two of them is compelling, but for the most part, in order to activate these gates, you have to know how to activate them. You don't just go stand there and chant some Hindu mantras. There's a science behind this, and very, 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 very few people, human beings alive on the earth, probably know what that science is exactly, or at least the keys to unlock these doors. So, anyways, Amaru Muru. Now, I don't want to confuse people. The gateway, it's called Puerta de Huayamarca. That's the Spanish term for it, but it's also called the doorway or the gateway of Amaru Muru. And Amaru Muru was an actual priest king of the Incas. And to illustrate, Steve, some of the some interesting details concerning Stargates, some of those interesting details associated with Amaru Muru shed a lot of light on how this works and how it worked in the past and why some of these civilizations suddenly explode with technology and others just, basically get stuck in the Stone Age or the Bronze Age or whatever. Amaru Muru, as I said, is said to have come through the gateway of the gods from a land of the gods that was destroyed by a great flood. So as Steve said, somehow, whether he was a fallen angel or some other kind of entity, somehow, according to the legend, he escaped that flood. Okay? So he came through the gateway. By the way, Amaru Muru, just like Viracocha, just like Quetzalcoatl, just like Kukulkan, is described as being white-skinned with blonde hair and blue or green eyes. So again, we have the connection between all these plumed serpent guys. And obviously he was connected with the plumed serpent. His name is Amaru, plumed serpent or serpent. So he came through the gateway bearing in hand, and I find this very interesting, again, referencing the cult of the sun and the serpent, bearing in hand the solar disk, the mystical solar disk of the land from which he came, which he gave to the Incas, which was supposed to be endowed with mystical powers. Some people speculate, I think there's some credence to this, by the way, some people speculate that Amaru Muru and the other white-bearded men among the native tribes that were associated with the plumed serpent gods may have in fact come from the land that was called, the mythical land that was called Atlantis and previously Lemuria, from the island of Lemuria or Atlantis. And there's a lot of speculation out there about that, but because of the consistency and I hope I'm not botching this up. I hope people are seeing the consistency, the incredible consistency between the plumed serpent deities of the Mayas, the Aztecs, and the Incas, and other native tribes as well, civilizations. And so he came to the Stargate bearing in his hands this sun, and he taught, by the way, he, along with the other plumed serpent entities, taught the people, this is in the legends, every one of them taught the people, their respective civilizations, to worship the sun. So they were associated with the plumed serpent, and they were teaching the people to worship the sun. In other words, they were founding these civilizations with advanced technology, and they were teaching the people the Luciferian cult. So that starts to give us clues of who, that obviously these guys are not good guys, even though the New Age community tries to twist the stories and make it look like they brought peace and enlightenment. We know what the result of those civilizations was. Every one of them, and it's not coincidence, descended into chaos and bloodthirst and human sacrifice. Everybody's familiar with those stories of concerning those civilizations. So obviously the fruits are bad because the roots were bad. The fruits of the civilization were a function of the roots of the civilization. Luciferianism that was taught to them by people who either came over the sea, as in the case of Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan, on some kind of flying ships. That's another reason why the plumed serpent is used to identify them, is because it gives the illusion of flight. It alludes to flight. So they came in ships over the sea, Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan. Viracocha said to have come up from Lake Titicaca, and Amaru Muru came through a Stargate. So we have these very interesting, they're all associated with antediluvian themes. Every single one of them is associated with the Genesis 6 antediluvian theme of the giants and the great flood. And they all have giants. All those civilizations, by the way, that I named, the three that I'm focusing on here, the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca, all of them have legends of giants. All of them have not only legends of giants, but specifically a race of giants that was destroyed, and a great flood. And so, anyways, this is very interesting because we see the legend of the Stargate, Amaru Muru, the priest king of the Incas, who came through bearing some kind of technology with him from the land of the gods that was destroyed in the flood. He is associated with the serpent or the dragon. His name means dragon. And he leads the people in to the worship of the sun, or the Luciferian cult. I mean, this is, again, I'm not making this up. These are the legends. This is the legend. And there are many legends. Again, some of them are convoluted. Some of them seem contradictory, because legends aren't the best sources for hard facts. But when you find common threads through legends, especially of people groups that are separated, especially by large bodies of water, such as oceans, or spread out all over the Americas, when you find common threads in the legends of these people, especially when you talk about white bearded godmen with blue eyes that were tall, and they all founded their civilizations, and they all are associated with a flood and giants, there's fact behind some of these details. It's based on fact, and then it was convoluted over time. But we can distill down the fact according to what the Bible says happened, and we can understand that these entities that are coming through the gates, that are coming from over the sea to the ancient world, preaching Luciferian doctrines, leading the people into the worship of the sun, founding those civilizations that descended into bloodlust and chaos, that these people were identified with the antediluvian world and Luciferianism. That we can say for certain. So the Stargate of Amaru Muru, located on the banks, not on the banks of Titicaca, but close to Titicaca, is said to be active to this day, or at least was active some years ago, by the native people. And I say that again to absolutely verify what Steve has been saying all these years about Stargates. And Steve, that's the most incredible thing to me, because who would have ever thought? I didn't stumble on this gateway, Amaru Muru, until I think it was maybe 6 months ago or so. I didn't know about it, and when I first came upon it, I thought, well, I was skeptical of it until I listened to the testimony of some of the elders of the village, and they have they have an interesting anecdote that's very well known among the people there of a time when the Stargate opened and something bad happened. There was a group of musicians that were traveling by that Stargate. I forget when this was, but it's a very well-known tradition, well-known legend among these people that they were traveling by the Stargate, playing their music, either some kind of a parade or something, and inadvertently activated the Stargate. So that's interesting, Steve, because that seems to indicate that Stargates can be activated by what do you call it, the harmonics or the vibrations.
Right, and let me take it into the Native American culture, because now we're going to get to CERN, okay? And this is interesting. The European Organization for Nuclear Research, their Large Hadron Collider. Tim, I referred to something that you have a copy of, and Doug, if you'd like to have a copy as an investigator, former private investigator, active private investigator, Native American Sacred Sites in the Department of Defense. And this is a publication that basically came out in June 1998, and it was done by two gentlemen at the University of Colorado, Mr. Deloria and a Mr. Stoffel. Now, this is what's critical for people to understand, and I want people to get this. The technology. I once had a 4-star general who was very high up in the world of theoretical physics contact me. And by the way, he produced, Doug, all the bona fides for me, and because I do my best to keep people's names covered, I won't share his name publicly. But he told me this. He said the two things that the government has done, and they call it the core reality, the two things that they've wanted to keep quiet more than any other are Stargates and also the coming alien God deception, because they're going to use that. Now, I want to read from my book on page 291. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm convinced that because of Tim and I doing this show tonight, that something's going to break through in this realm. I was contacted by a couple scientists through a cutout. There are people that cannot contact me due to their position, so they use a cutout. They use a messenger, he'll hand deliver, or he'll get it to me somewhere where, believe it or not, there are no NSA computer records outside of what I say on the radio. And I try and be very careful. And I want people to understand this. During a press conference, this is from page 291 in my book, basically, True Legends. I think it's one of the most critical books because I answer all the questions. Why are there no giant skeletons? What are Stargates? What about Bigfoot? What about all these Indian legends? What about the stuff Tim Alberino's talking about? Now listen to this, and this is an astonishing couple statements. Robert Evans, one of the chief CERN scientists, said this. Now, understand, this isn't a wacko. These are the guys that run CERN. This is 4 years ago. Parallel universes, unknown forms of matter, extra dimensions. These are not the stuff of cheap science fiction, but very concrete physics theories that scientists are trying to confirm with the LHC and other experiments. Now let me go to a plaque that exists on the basic Shiva if you will, the basic Shiva statute that's at the CERN. Now, Shiva is a destroyer of worlds, okay? But listen to this. The four-armed Shiva statue, which is performing a cosmic dance that, according to legend, destroys a weary universe and makes preparation for the god Brahma to start the process of creation. This is what transhumanism is all about. Now, listen to this statement by Capra. Hundreds of years ago, Indian artists created visual images of dancing Shivas in a beautiful series of bronzes. In our time, physicists have used the most advanced technology to portray the patterns of the cosmic dance. The metaphor of the cosmic dance thus unifies ancient mythology, religious art, and modern physics. Think about this, is what I wrote. A symbolic statue of what might be fallen angels who promise to destroy things as we know them now and rebuild a new improved universe with a plaque basically saying the facility will be trying to unify mythology, religion, and physics. Now, I'd say that's in your face, wouldn't you, Doug?
Very much so, Steve. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
by the way, Steve, and I just want to, folks, if you don't have True Legends, look, you've got to get it because it answers a lot of questions for me, for us, for Joe and I, and I just want to throw that in there because you'll gain a tremendous understanding with what Stargates are, and as you said, the giants and all this. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, one of the things and when I say this, I know there are a lot of people interceding for everyone that has prayed for me, for Tim, for Doug, for Joe. God bless you. We thank you. For those of you who have sensed a heightened state of concern, God bless you, Romy. God bless you for knowing that the time of the release of all this stuff is at hand. I want you to understand something. It seems to me like after Tim and I will do a show like this, and I'm going to say this, hell breaks loose. When Jesus said, "Get thee behind me, Satan," that literally means follow after. And I understand we're trying to sow seeds. What we're sharing with you is things from time, space, and eternity. And I want to give out a website that's free for some of the most mind-bending information by a man of God who is an ethnologist, an archaeologist, a linguist, and an amazing brother in the Lord. He's dead now, Arthur Custance. And it's Custance, CUSTANCE.org. We don't understand time. We don't understand eternity. We don't understand so much. But God gives us wisdom. And look, this isn't secret and arcane knowledge. This is the knowledge that our ancient forebears, Enoch, the book of Enoch, not the New Age bastardized versions or the twisted version, but the real versions of the book of Enoch. Enoch was taken to heaven. He was absolutely shown all the secrets of the universe. He was sent back to Earth with over 360 volumes, and all we've got today, due to the different entities trying to control the true knowledge, what we've got is partial manuscript pieces from the Dead Sea Scrolls. When Tim did, and I would say this, if anybody wants a university degree in antiquity, and Tim, I've often prayed that God would grant somebody who's in a benefactor's position to, and I'm not coveting anybody's money, to step up the pump with 7 figures so we could set up a university of antiquity, and this is what it would be based on. The true history of the world, and by the way, they wouldn't be all Christians that would come and teach because there's a lot of guys that get parts of the truth, but they've come to a dead end because they won't accept the God of heaven. They won't accept the things the Bible says. They're looking to hallucinogenic drugs. They're looking to the spirit world. They're looking to lying spirits. And again, I want to give this caution. I have personally seen in my own life the power of Ouija boards, and I have personally been delivered of the demonic spirits attached to that. I would encourage everybody listening to this broadcast not to look at that even, and I'm saying this because I've got this warning. I've got a check on my spirit right now, Romy, and I thank you for your intercession. For those who are praying, Manette's been in prayer and fasting all day for this show. The bottom line is that you cannot partake of that stuff. Your eyes are windows to your soul. The body, soul, and spirit. And Doug, I got to go here. This is where the Lord is leading me. I'm not trying to be, melodramatic, but the eyes are the window to the soul. That's where Satan attacks us in our mind, will, intellect, and emotion. And Ouija boards are nothing compared to what's coming, but they're everything to the uninformed. And so I find it interesting that Mystery Babylon bewitches the whole world. I find it interesting that Hollywood, with all of its perversion, all of its practices, and the biggest thing in Hollywood right now behind the scenes is, gee, what incubus did you have sex with last night if you're a woman, or what succubus did you have sex with if you were a man? For some reason, there are specific classes of evil spirits and fallen angels that can change their shape. We call them shapeshifters. A lot of in the Native Americans obviously call them Wendigos, and there's so many different words that have been associated with this. Ancient antiquity and fairy tales call them changelings, Well, that's a pretty good word. So the point being is we're talking tonight about Stargates in Native American legends. We're talking about, and fascinating to me, is this, Stargates and Native American legends. Thanks both to science fiction movies as well as theoretical physics. Again, I'm writing this. We have the mental tools to be able to recognize a Stargate in a story or pictograph. Coco Pele, if you notice the little, if you will, Pied Piper of the desert. I have been told by generals that generals, plural, on a majestic level, that the gates open by words, by sounds, and by a power source. I've never obviously told the words, because the first thing I do is get a hold of Tim and say, come on, Tim, we're headed to Amaru, Maru, or wherever. But the point being is the idea is this, that people are playing in this realm. And I want to share something, to the people that, tell me that the people are hearing right now. I swear I hear growling coming through tonight's show. The others have said they're hearing some kind of chanting going on. But the point is that I don't get worked up over the negative emails. I'm identifying, I am giving those people sending me the negative emails a chance to repent, because this is the last time some of them will ever hear this. So those of you that want to basically tell me what to do or not to do, I appreciate it, but the bottom line is you don't get what I'm doing. It's not that I'm just, upset or anything. Good night, you guys. I've taken it for 25 years. So, Libby, I appreciate your email, but it's irrelevant, okay? It's irrelevant. Having said that, Doug, there are people who are saying to me right now in the emails, and I can do two things at once by the grace of God, that they are hearing chanting. Well, of course they're hearing chanting. Of course they're hearing the dimension. The prince and power of the air is active, and if it weren't for the intercessors, we wouldn't be on the air tonight. Now, saying this, Stargates and Native American legends, then I'll turn it back over to Tim in about 2 or 3 minutes. They always talk about visits to the underworld. They talk about men traveling through an opening in a rock covered by what appears to be water, but which doesn't make him wet when he steps through it. Anybody ever see the movie Stargate? Now, these are Native American legends from hundreds of years ago. An Apache story tells of a shaman who was told to go to Guadalupe Mountain, where the voice sent instruction to go into the cliff. When he moves towards a rock face, it opens like a door so he can go into a secret world. The Washoe tribe, interesting look at this region, living in the Lake Tahoe region, had a story of two sisters who, when looking at the stars, wished they could marry a starman. The next day they awake in a strange place and discover not only they are married to a starman, but also that each have a baby conceived by him. Hello? Does that sound like abductions? The Oat tribe has a legend of two girls that are seen high in the air inside a sky hole. The men of the village throw rope laureates into the air, and a few go through the ring to lasso the girls. The villagers then pull the two down to earth and discover they are the same girls that had been missing from the vision. And it goes on and on and on. Many other tribes in North America have variations on the star husband stories, i.e. alien introduction of DNA, i.e. giants. And let me make this clear, and then I'll turn it over to Tim. In the book of Genesis, there were giants in those days prior to the flood and after the flood. It's obvious that some of the ancient technology, especially the Vimanas, and for the record, the Hindus are an Aryan race, meaning they're white. They're not Orientals. They're not Arabs. They are pure Aryans. I'm talking about the pure Hindu race, not Hindu, forgive me, the Indian population. And what's fascinating to me, Tim, is the cover shot of my book, Genesis 6 Giants, and the very story that the pilot, the C-130 pilot, tells about, fascinating. 120 years later, the pilot is flying out a dead giant killed by a special operations team that had to go in and basically find the bodies of all the ones that had gotten eaten out of the same area that the giants on my front of my book, Genesis 6 Giants, are from. So the Stargates are a very secret technology. But as Alex Jones said today, when I think it was Dean Hagelin showed up at his door, and Alex had made the statement on his show that prior to the X-Files movie on 9/11, I guess it was Dean Hagelin that said that they were told to write that script, Doug. I don't know if you heard Alex's show today, by the CIA. Well,
yep.
That blew my mind because, again, I have maintained there is a special relationship between Hollywood and the intelligence agencies. By putting everything into science fiction and the movie genre science fiction, you'd be surprised how much truth is out there, even if it doesn't initially strike you as truth. How about Minority Report? How about some of the transhumanists? Here it is in a nutshell. All the stuff in legends, all the stuff in myths are based on something that's true but being twisted and being distorted to put the devil's spin on things, okay? You talk about torsion physics. Well, you've got basically twisted physics. And I'm not talking about a band by the name of Twisted Sister. I'm talking about a twisting. And when you're talking about entities that have overcome space, that have overcome time and space, that are multidimensional, you cannot fight these things in your own strength. I have people all the time say, you show me where they're at, and I'll show you you're wrong. Let me give you an example of a current Stargate and going on right now and what happened to it, because it fits into exactly what Greg Evenson has been told, what I've been told by multiple generals. Look, I don't know why, but God gave me a word, and he's been faithful to his word. I don't care who this makes mad. I don't care what they say about me, but I will share this. When the Lord said, if I would be willing to reveal to his people and warn his people what is coming, he would bring the people that know. I don't know what their reasoning is. I don't know what. And obviously there are people that try and give me bad stuff, and not everyone tells me the truth. I recognize that. But to those who have told me the truth, it is for the purpose of warning God's people. Doug, it's real simple. If the lack of knowledge destroys God's people, the presence of knowledge can redeem them, okay? And the most important knowledge is the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, our Savior, our King. I love what Pastor Langford says. It is so true. God doesn't love anybody more than anybody else. It's just those who have been redeemed from much. Hey, I know who I was. Yuck. I know what vile sin means. Yuck. I also know what a righteous Savior means. And I'm telling you this, I'm not going to try and establish my righteousness. I don't have any. I can safely look at my life and say, yuck. I can safely look at the Lord Jesus' offer of redemption and say yes. So now I say yes to Jesus and yuck to my former life. Do I sin? Absolutely. Am I in control of my mouth? No. I'm praying about that. Do people bug me? Absolutely. Especially what I've learned, one thing. You cannot save, I cannot save, and Tim cannot save with the best arguments in the world people who are bent on going to hell and their own destruction. God can, through intercessory prayer, through the praying parents and grandparents, save those type people at the last days. But if people don't get it now, that across the world, supernatural entities are fueling human, if you will, extensions of their hatred for mankind and the slaughter of Christians taking place around the world while the Western Church hardly says a thing, hardly does a thing, and now, up until this point, the pulpits have been silent. I told Doug, and I'm going to turn it right over to you, Tim, I said the next sermon I preach, that God has already given me the words, and I'm sorry, he does give me the words, is when God vomits you out of his mouth. Now, Doug, most people say, I don't believe that. God is love. God is love, but he's also just and merciful. Revelation 3:16, Jesus said, because you're neither hot or cold and lukewarm, I will spew. The word spew means to literally hurl. And everybody who's ever gotten so drunk that basically they have flash vomiting, maybe you've had the flu too, but I remember when I used to hurl, when I used to just get snockered and could get no more snockered, and if I hadn't flashed to the degree I flashed. So it says, you shouldn't talk that way. Why? That's what I was redeemed from. And the point is that we're talking about now entities coming through the gates whose sole purpose is the destruction of mankind. So much so that Jesus said the elect would be deceived, and if the days weren't shortened, there'd be no flesh left alive. The transhumanist lie is the same lie that was in Eden. We don't need your God, they say. We don't need your Savior. And oh, by the way, we won't speak his name. And the point is that they're looking for the ultimate illumination. Tim, go ahead.
I think it's very interesting that America, deriving its name from the land of the plumed serpent, seems that it's being governed at this point in time, and I doubt that any of the listeners to this show would disagree, by a Luciferian faction. Now, there's some interesting things when you consider that, because the question is, where is all of this going? Very few things, if anything at all, that Lucifer is doing or fallen angels are doing is without a greater and extended purpose. And so I want people to understand, and by the way, before I forget, the next analysis in the Plumed Serpent series is done and is going to be uploaded tonight. So a lot of what we're talking about is in this next analysis and should appear tomorrow morning on Steve's website. So a lot of where is this going? As I said in the beginning, and as Steve pointed out, the worship of the sun and the dragon, and as cited by Blavatsky and Manly P. Hall, is the most ancient religion, the most ancient cult. It is the one cult that you find all over the world. It is the most consistent cult. And folks, it's not a thing of the past. It is absolutely going to reemerge in the imminent future. And that statement probably bothers a lot of people because a lot of people assume that our pagan days are over, that mankind would never be dumb enough to return to worshiping the serpent or the sun or the dragon. But remember that to the high cultures, the most civilized cultures, they were worshiping the entity behind the symbol and the philosophy he represented. So, when I'm talking about America, the land of the plumed serpent, there's a secret destiny associated with America. Tom Horn talks a lot about this in his book Zenith 2016 or Apollyon Rising, and this secret destiny is being controlled and guided by the initiated. And when I say the initiated, we're talking about the ones that have been the people that have been initiated into the mysteries through the Freemasons, through the Masonic cult, or through the Rosicrucians, or through the different orders of Luciferianism. They have been initiated. They refer to us, those of us who are uninitiated, we are the profane. In other words, we're profane because we don't understand what the symbols really mean. We don't understand where this is all going. We don't understand the strategy and the tactics of the controllers of society. And we don't understand or take serious the non-human interaction and influence that is happening in our society and in our governments and through these secret societies. They do. They take it very seriously. They have a great plan that they're working towards, and it ties in to the ancient civilizations, not really ancient civilizations, but the post-Columbian civilizations of the Maya, the Inca, and the Aztec. And again, Tom Horn breaks a lot of this down in his book Zenith 2016. But my point is this: there is a destiny for America that not many people understand, and it's important because they're actively working towards this, and the policies that are being passed in Congress and all the different political issues, they're inching their way towards this goal. And the goal is centered around America. it's centered around, I'll be more specific, North America, the United States of America. And there's a lot of reasons I say that. There's a lot of occultic writings that point to that. But one of the interesting things that I've uncovered recently, studying all about the plumed serpents and the secret destiny of America, is that America, according to occultists like Blavatsky, is supposed to be, and she knew this way back in the late 19th century, that America is supposed to be the birthing place of the new race. In other words, the United States of America is supposed to be the womb that gives birth to a new human race. And that's not metaphoric. That's not an analogy. That's literal. There's a new race coming. Steve was talking about transhumanism, and the idea of posthumanism is very real. That's not in the realm of legend. That's in the realm of real. That's in the realm of science. It's actually happening right now. And that's a whole other show. Obviously, Steve and Doug and Joe have talked about that a lot. So, but the issue here is that the specific destiny of America in relationship to the plumed serpent gods is, believe it or not, the reemergence of the worship of the dragon or the worship of the serpent. And when I say the reemergence, I'm talking about public worship, public veneration of the serpent of old, as the Bible calls him. And proof of this is found in the book of Revelations, literally Revelations 13, where we read, they worshiped the dragon who gave authority to the beast. They worshiped the dragon. And it's my very strong contention that that is not metaphoric. That's literal. So people are probably kind of confused. What does all this plumed serpent stuff and Aztec and Maya and Inca legend have to do with America? What's the big deal? Because we're going there again. The worship of the dragon is going to reemerge. That's not just my opinion. This is literally something that the initiated, those who are initiated in the mysteries, well understand, and they're working towards that goal. The goal is to set the stage for the Antichrist and to reinstate a Luciferian cult on a global basis, on a worldwide scope. That's literally what they're working for. And so it's very interesting that they've chosen the land of the plumed serpents, America, the land of the plumed serpent, to initiate this work, or at least to bring it to fruition. I'm sorry, was somebody going to interject something?
Yeah, Tim, if I can just kind of chime in here and say basically what we're talking about tonight is you're actually filling in the blanks. I mean, when the United States, or when America was founded, and we go back to Pike and Mazzini and what Steve Quayle has talked about, and what Tom Horn has written about in his book Apollyon 2012 and Zenith 2016. All of this, America was established to, or tell me if this is true. America was established to usher in this, to be the new Atlantis, and to usher in this very pagan worship, God worship deity, Luciferian deity that you're referencing. In other words, you've just laid the groundwork tonight. The missing pieces, in antiquity, that speaks to the present day. Is that kind of what you're saying? I mean,
well, yeah, and Doug, let me interrupt this to share. Look, did not we have the Mayan elders go through the land with the crystal skulls? What people don't understand in that whole ceremony, they were opening the gates of hell. Do you remember when all the brouhaha was in the land about that? And again, look, I don't care that they're elders. I care what they're doing, okay? And that's sense. Now it makes sense. Now do you understand why Anubis, thou shalt have no other gods before me? Oh, that there would have been a man of God to rise up and command the statue of Anubis to fall. Oh, that there would have been the power of God striking it with lightning. But I fear, and when I say fear, I don't mean I fawn in fear, but I absolutely was astonished that the people of God outside, and Doug, we dealt with that on your show, but look,
Sure.
we're a few, and I pray, but I guess there was nothing I could do. Sometimes I take this stuff too personally. Look, I know who I am, and I don't necessarily like everything about me, but I do like this thing, is that I have a heart to try and protect as many people of God as I can, okay? What Tim is telling you is the old gods are back. And please, ladies and gentlemen, hear me. Just as the Oracle of Delphi and others prophesied that the old gods would go away, it's like something out of a Spielberg movie with a statement, they're back. They're coming back with a fury. Can I say something, Doug? I wish people would just take a red letter Bible, the King James, and go through the New Testament and hear what Jesus says. Because, and I'm not dismissing anything in the epistles or anything. I'm just saying, or just the red letter, because when Jesus said, there's never been a time like it, and never will be again. I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, I'm limited in my ability to understand. You're eternal, I'm temporal. I said, help me to understand the power of that statement. Here's what he said to me. He said, Steve, take everything I've taught you about the history of the world. Take all the bloodshed that's been shed in the world. Take all the horrors and all that has taken place in the name of war and multiply it by 1,000. I said, Lord, well, I can multiply that by 1,000. I even tried one time, Doug, to literally calculate the amount of blood that has been shed in the earth. And listen, I'm not kidding. I tried to do it. I wish my skills at math were better. At one time they were, but I don't possess them. But let me just say this. When the Lord spoke that to me, I truly understood what it means when Jesus asks a question that he leaves unanswered. When the Lord returns, will he find faith in the earth? And he said, except he shorten the days, there'd be no flesh left alive. The goal, and listen to everybody, this is the basis of xenogenesis, the basis of all transhumanism, artificial intelligence, robotics, singularity, no matter how flowery the technological names sound, is the destruction of all life by people infused by demons and fallen angels themselves to destroy the very seed of Eve and Adam and Eve that God died to redeem, so that, again, he can try and prove God's a liar, because he's literally taking, and I don't know why. I wish the Lord would give me an answer to this question. Lord, why didn't you just knock him out in the first inning, okay? My only answer to that, Doug, that I've been able to come with is that he might demonstrate the things that even the angels longed to peer into, so that it could never be said in eternity that God ever forced anybody to worship him. Now, that's contrary to Lucifer, because Lucifer will give everybody everything they want until that last day when they demand, when the ultimate demand is made for their soul. And they're not going to win that fiddling contest in Georgia when they come up against the devil without the blood of Jesus being their eternal covering. I think Keith Richards' biography talks about his old pal Lucifer. To the world, the Rolling Stones have been the most successful band, even excelling the Beatles. But the point is, he knows he's got an appointment. And I think the last time I heard him quote it was maybe a year ago. He said, I'm not ready to see my old pal Lucifer yet. Do you remember that? I think we talked about that on your show.
Yep.
So here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. What Tim and I are talking about tonight is so critical for you to recognize, and if I could term it, and again, Tim's newest Alberino analysis, I want everybody to go to my website, stevequayle.com. That's where Tim posts, and watch the Alberino analysis, because what you will get is the fastest bringing you up to speed course that's ever been put together. God has anointed Tim. It doesn't go to his head. He knows his calling to basically be as concise, and he's much more linear than I am, thank the Lord for that. But the point is he is taking this to the people that have ears to hear and eyes to see, and it will so open your understanding to the nature of spiritual warfare and give you the wow back in the great salvation that the living God has wrought. I think, Doug, we're at the top of the hour. We should take a break.